What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Rated R for Rymar. I am, just let's see, it's Monday, 1:08 p.m., and it has been another wild weekend. Let's see, last weekend, we had the Trump attempted assassination. This weekend, we have Weekend at Bernie's. Basically, Biden drops out, quote unquote, of the election, but we're not really sure what that means because we haven't actually heard from him. And it seems to me that things are getting really weird out there. And this is one of the reasons I started this show, is because I think we're at this time of change. We're at this moment where, like, everything is changing. Literally, news is coming at us faster that we can deal with in real time. And we need to create new channels for folks to connect and interact and share. And really, I'm looking for a place to just kind of think through things out loud. So anyway, I wanted to go through some of what is on my mind and, go from there. So first things we got to look at is, I don't want to get down the conspiratorial rabbit hole, but this whole assassination attempt and Secret Service is starting to raise more questions than it has answers. I was leaning towards, the narrative is there was a lone gunman. I don't know. There's a ton of things coming out that just kind of conflict with the main narrative and things that are raising lots of questions. So let's zoom in a little bit here. This is a tweet from CNN. By 3 p.m. on Saturday, roughly 3 hours before the shooting, Crooks was at the security screening area for the rally. He first aroused suspicion when he passed through the magnetometers carrying a rangefinder. And so this is 3 hours before the shooting. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the timeline here. He also flew a drone. So this is being reported by the FBI. He flew a drone over the area. So he had a drone, but the Secret Service did not, or nobody from the Department of Homeland Security who was filling in for some of the Secret Service slots didn't have a drone. They didn't have the area surveilled, and they didn't have anybody on the roof. You can see, they have video. This is an hour before. You can see the guy literally walking around, scoping out the area. There's other videos that show folks calling him out literally minutes before the shooting took place. And then there's a timeline that's confirmed here. About 5:10, Crooks was first identified as a person of interest. At 5:30, he was spotted with a rangefinder. At 5:52, he was spotted on the roof by Secret Service. So they had him in his sights. And then at 6:02, Trump starts talking. And then 6:12, Crooks fires the first shot. And then there's a bevy of conspiracy as to whether it was one shooter, was it two shooters, was it three shooters, was there some dude on a zip line from a water tower, were there other Secret Service people firing, dig in if you want to dig in. All I'm saying is shit is not really adding up. And today we have the director of the Secret Service who is in Congress testifying, and none of her answers are making sense. There's obviously, this is one of those situations where the government's going to police itself. They're going to conduct an investigation, and we know how that goes. I'm not expecting any real answers from there. But it's kind of crazy to see that leading up to then what happens this weekend, which is essentially Joe Biden dropping out of the race. Joe Biden dropping out of the race with no, without addressing the nation. He literally posted something on Twitter. I'm going to get into it here. His team essentially found out about it through Twitter. So let's listen to, and this is a little clip from a debate here, basically foreshadowing what exactly happened, literally exactly what happened here. So let's listen to what he said in the debate just not that long ago.
Like I told Barack, if I reach something where there's a fundamental disagreement we have based on a moral principle, I'll develop some disease and say I have to resign. We don't have that. We haven't, and we discussed it. But I told Barack.
So for how long? And this is going back to the weird thing. For how long were these folks telling us that we had nothing to worry about? These videos were cheap fakes. He was mentally there. Everything was fine. And now all of a sudden he's critically ill. He got COVID. He, has dementia, whatever, now it's all coming out. And it's interesting to see that it feels like, he didn't necessarily step away because he had mental decline, but because it was exposed fully finally, because they can't hide it anymore. And so they had to get rid of him. And Vivek Ramaswamy, who again called some of this ahead of time, we're not running against a candidate, we're running against a system. And that's the thing. That system right there is what I'm talking about is weird. going back to the assassination attempt, going back to everything that's kind of happened in the US government, going back to the wars in Ukraine right now, these forever wars that we continue to find ourselves subject to, like that we always just figure out how to get into a new one. Biden will brag about getting us out of Afghanistan and, stopping the war. And then boom, here we are immediately back into this other war that seems to have no end and seems to have crazy motives, a ton of money going into these black holes, these political black holes that we don't know what's happening with any of this. And we don't really know what the outcome is or what the strings are being at play. And then you hear of all these ties, Hunter Biden and Burisma. You hear all these ties in Ukraine with different diplomats and different businesses. Even this CrowdStrike, this large Windows crash that we had, has ties to Ukraine. And so there's so many things that are kind of like interweaving right now that, again, it should give you pause. Like you should just stop and question, like, what the fuck is actually going on? And this is where I think most people get lost, because it's like you can't keep up with it, and then you don't know who to trust. You don't know where to go get the actual news, right? And so, like Dave Smith here, everything has been crazy for a few weeks, but I hope people appreciate just how bizarre it is that we still haven't seen or heard from Joe Biden. The sitting president pulls out of his re-election race and doesn't address the nation. I know he has trouble speaking, but still. And you got a little meme underneath with a little mask, somebody come out and pretending like they're Joe Biden. And so that again, that's crazy. Like, to think that he's not just pulling out of the reelection campaign, but if he's not competent to stand for reelection, then why? Like, who's running the country now? Shouldn't he just resign at this moment? Which is an argument many people are saying. Jameel Holly here. I love my Dem family, but you're not going to convince me it's okay to, one, literally change DNC rules in the bylaws committee. To rig the primary election to circumvent Dem candidates. If you remember, they had a closed primary that they allowed no opponents to Biden, even though it was very clear at the time that he was probably going to face some tension going into this because he was cognitively declining. Cover a serious health matter, so they didn't cover that. They pretended like there was no health issues and get through the primary, withdraw, and now tell me who the nominee is. So instead of them saying, hey, we're going to now open this up, Biden's not going to be up for re-election, let's do a condensed version of the primary and let's have an open, let's see what the people actually want, because this is the party that pretends to, want to save democracy, and all they've been talking about for the last handfuls of years is how Trump is a threat to democracy. And so somehow, to protect democracy, they have to do things that are completely counter to democracy. They have to dismiss the will of their voters. I don't know, 20 plus million people who voted in the Democratic primary. They have to lie to the people about the health of the president. And you can't tell me that Kamala didn't know. You can't tell me that the White House didn't know. You can't tell me that anybody who was close to Biden didn't know that he was in serious cognitive decline, or that some of this was coming, or there was issues in some of this. Anybody who says otherwise is either not paying attention, they're lying to you, or they're a complete fraud, or maybe all three of those things. And again, leads to, like, we should question really where and who we're getting our information from. So Kyle Becker here says, let's recap the historic day. Joe Biden suddenly resigns via X. White House staff find out 1 minute later. So I have an article here from Politico that literally talks about their staff finding out from the news on the tweet. Listen, Biden's decision to drop out came on the fourth day of sequestration at his shore home on Delaware, where he's being isolated, recovering from COVID. Of course, he has COVID now. He's recovering. He's off the radar. The president was initially joined by just a small group of aides, and he has spent the entire period out of public view. The White House, in the meantime, providing little detail on Biden's activities, alluding only to a handful of briefings with senior aides, blah, blah, blah. But Biden was joined this weekend by one of his closest aides. Just hours before the president said he would abandon his bid, his campaign was hit with more grim news. Okay, let's see. Where's the link? It seems like this is like an updated. Yeah, it's like an updated feed, so it's not what I thought was going to be up here at the beginning. So I don't have it bookmarked exactly here, but I'll share the link to this. But essentially, this is a live feed of what's going on. Biden's announcement stunned the White House and the campaign aides, who up until this afternoon were insisting he stay in the race. We're all finding out by tweet, said one Dem. So this is literally them saying, forget about going to the news. If you want the news is happening on X. By the way, I know that it was posted on other networks, but the live stream of consciousness of the United States and the world is happening on X, and that's become more apparent. During the assassination attempt, there was news on X way faster than any of the networks could cover it. Some of the Twitter spaces, some of the live streams, some of the things that were happening on this platform were well ahead of the cable news networks. And much more well-rounded as it relates to like the perspective you're getting. So if you're interested in any of this stuff and you're not on X, I would recommend, you know, jumping into that, and getting involved there. There's also a lot of garbage and bullshit you have to like sift through. But the stuff rises to the top, and there's these community notes that are placed on articles, which helps, you know, kind of provide context for different things. So let's see. White House. Okay, so Joe resignation letter not on official letterhead. So this is causing some controversy as well. You can see the letter we have here is not on official White House letterhead, and they're questioning the signature. I think I have, I have another article here that shows different versions of Biden's signature, and then it shows the other, you know, the signature that's on this most recent document. And you know, which is crazy because they got access to AutoPen. Like, you know, people don't sign these things manually all the time. So somebody really seems like they, you know, missed the mark here. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to go down conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but there's a lot of people asking questions. Representative Anna Paulina, who I appreciate her perspectives recently. I think she's actually right here in Florida. Let me see if this is the one. Yeah, District 13. Florida's District 13. This is just north of us in the Tampa area. Yeah. So she has, after leaving the oversight briefing this morning, I'm more convinced than ever that Crooks wasn't working alone. And I'm going to show you here rate proposed community notes. So what you'll see is people can sign in, and I am a community notes contributor, which is why I can see the notes that are not active. And, you know, basically people can then leave context inside of these notes. And then once enough people either agree with or disagree with or prove or disprove what's being stated here, then the note gets approved. And so a lot of times, you know, maybe I'm showing you see rate proposed community note, and then there will be an actual community note on an article if it's approved. It's basically like an advanced commenting system inside of there that's kind of private and access gated for people to you know, add context and dig in. But basically what she's saying here is that, you know, I'm more convinced that Crooks wasn't working alone. This goes back to the shooting, that maybe he wasn't just a lone gunman like people say. Again, going back to the what the hell is happening, what the hell is the real story here, are we ever going to get the real story? I don't know. Let's go back to this Kyle Becker tweet. Let's see. White House Chief of Staff calls cabinet, manages comms. Frank Biden confirms health a factor. Family suggests Biden may have a terminal illness. So now he's potentially life-threatening. Maybe we'll never hear from Biden again. Literally, I saw some jokes. Actually, we're gonna end with this little meme video about Biden. Anyway, we'll get to that. But yeah, it's just okay. And here, this is some context. Anyone else notice the letter didn't have the presidential seal because it was a campaign announcement, not presidential announcement? Okay, that might make sense. Again, it doesn't account to where the signature, the variations in the signature. But where is Joe is a good question. He should, like anything like this, you would imagine it would be like a live press conference in front of a setting like this, looking at the camera, talking directly to the nation, saying, hey, here's what's going on. You know, I'm dropping out for X, Y, or Z from the race. I'm going to be here for the next 4 months as a president in a transition, blah, 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 blah. But apparently they can't even do that. So again, who is running this? Going back to like, what is, like, we're seeing the deep state in full force here at almost every surface layer of what's going on. And this is, again, why I think the First Amendment becomes so important, because having, like, if X was not around, or if these platforms that or these independent media and independent platforms were not around, like, where would we be going for any of this? Would going to the cable news, going to the ad-driven cable news networks who for so long hid the Biden's decline, who for up until, you know, 5 seconds ago were telling us that Biden was going to be the next candidate and that everything was fine and everything's hunky-dory. And, you know, the FBI, who basically lied to us for years about, you know, the Russia collusion hoax. You know, for 4 years, this is basically beating on the drum, and then they just expect it to fall out of nowhere. And that's what they're going to do here. They're going to try to turn the news cycle as quickly as possible. They're going to try to get whoever the new nominee in place is going to be, which again is crazy. If they don't open this up, this goes back to like the RFK. Like, RFK ended up leaving the Democratic Party to go independent because there was no path for him inside of the Democratic Party because they closed that option. And part of me wonders is, like, was this a ploy to keep him out, knowing that if he came in, they might get some real traction from an internal candidate that would go up against Biden and create some real clash. And now they have the opportunity to do a brokered convention. You've got reports that Obama's still the one pulling the strings, that behind the scenes he has been in charge the whole time. There's all sorts of, again, speculation on who's really controlling the puppet master behind the scenes. But like Vivek said here, we're not running against a candidate. We're running against the system. We're running against a very powerful system here that seems to be exerting as much force and as much influence as possible over top of this, hoping that nobody looks behind the curtain to see what's going on. But we live in an era where there's too much. People have too many opinions. People have too many phones. There's too many leaks. There's too much stuff going on for this to be kind of kept in the dark, and that's where things get crazy. Ed Krasenstein, if you are familiar with any of these guys, but now we're going to start getting the Trump is too old, right? For up until 2 minutes ago, everyone was saying age is not relevant. They were defending Biden. Nobody could talk about age because Biden was obviously completely defunct, way too old for what he was doing. And, it was seen as ageist if you brought up the age. Now, we're going to start comparing age. And anybody who thinks Kamala Harris is going to be the president of the United States is smoking some kind of crack, because she literally was essentially incompetent as a vice president, got the lowest approval rating of any VP in office here, and it's just not going to happen, right? Trump, 78 years old. Kamala Harris, 59 years old. Let's get younger. Come on now. And 59 ain't it. 59 ain't it. Like I said, in a previous episode, if you're 50, you're young. If you're 60, you're young. Okay, this is in relation to politics. Where's the 40-year-olds, right? At least Trump, J.D. Vance, approve or not, 40 years old, at least he's in the mix, right? He's of the era, right? And I'm not going to get into any of the politics of maybe later we'll get into some of that, but just out of touch. This machine, this state-controlled machine, is just. Brian Dean Wright is. He's got used to have a podcast called The President's Daily Brief. It's now called The Wright Report. I'm going to read his tweet here because he's a former CIA operative. It's not hard to understand regime behavior. I worked against it at the CIA. In the case of the U.S. Democrat apparatchiks knew Joe Biden was mentally diseased for a year. They propped him up like a useful cadaver, enjoying the fruits of his semi-lucid state. So basically using Trump as Biden as an empty suit. And of course, they worked together to target their opponent, including denying his security protection in both number and quality. This is one thing that's come up in the hearings today with the director of the Secret Service is, the Trump campaign has asked for more Secret Service and has continually been rejected by the Secret Service. And then we see where that leads to, whether it's incompetence, whether it's conspiracy, whatever. There were, not basically providing adequate security for who will probably be the next president of the United States. And of course, now they're forcing cadaver Biden to step aside because the dementia is too clear, too costly, and they fear not for the future of the republic, but losing power. Again, they're not getting rid of him because of his dementia. They're getting rid of it because you've now figured out, everything's been exposed. So they're spreading and clinging to lines like the roof is too steep, despite the absurdity of the lie. If you heard the director of the Secret Service said they didn't have snipers on the roof because it was a pitched roof and it was too steep. Meanwhile, the roof that the actual snipers were on had an equal to or greater pitch. So things just don't add up. But that's what faltering regimes do. Truth is irrelevant. No lie is too outlandish, especially if you have the mainstream corporate media behind you towing the line, and then a Democratic Party that seems to just be willing to go with whatever they say. Literally whatever they say. The anti-war party is now cheering for war in Ukraine, right? The folks that are for peace are now, like, the roles are flipped. You're seeing people now lean to the Republican side of the aisle because the center now looks like the right. The left has gone so far left that the center now looks like the right. And so anything further than right looks like extreme right. It looks like the Nazis they've been painting for the last handful of years. And now that's why this moment is so very dangerous. Regime Democrats will go desperate as they fear loss of power, their language more frothy and deranged. The rhetoric will sow hysteria and panic against regime cult members. This is what we have to be very careful not to do. This is where we need to temper everything down. Take a step back. Just because you disagree with somebody does not mean that they're your enemy. Politics is the last step before violence. Right? And if we ignore politics, a lot of people have just said, hey, I don't want to be involved in politics. But if you refuse to be, this is a Plato quote, refusing to participate in politics means you'll be ruled by your inferiors or something like that. It's I should have it. I'm paraphrasing that quote from Plato. Let's look that up. Plato quote, refuse. There you go. I had it pulled up here. Oh no. Plato quote, refusing. There we go. One of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And this is something that stuck with me for years. I heard this a long time ago, and it stuck with me. And this is why it's super important for all of us to get involved, to become a part of holding people accountable, and not only just paying attention at the national level, but also keeping track of things on your local level and getting involved, because all politics are local. Almost anything that you can impact or make a difference in is going to happen on a local level. And the stronger we get at the local level, the more impact you can have at the higher level. It's like everything else. You have to build a strong foundation. You have to make sure that, you know, in your real world, things are connected, stable, and strong. And then you can project that strength up. The strength does not come from the top down, right? The strength is in the base. All right. So back to this tweet from Brian Dean Wright. Many of them will slide into conspiracy theories, like 34% of folks who believe Trump faked the assassination. 34% of Democrats surveyed, I don't know, who did the survey, but I've seen this running around, who believe Trump faked the assassination. If you think Trump faked the assassination and you think he had somebody fire at him from 300 feet away and just nick his ear, kill somebody in the background, like, you got another thing coming. It's, it's just not conceivable that you would fake someone shooting at your head with that margin of accuracy. Again, incompetence makes more sense. Negligence makes more sense. And an assassination attempt makes more sense than Trump making this up for himself so he can get the perfect, shot. So I don't know what the truth is, but I'm asking questions about all of it. And that's why they say the late state regime times so very dangerous. And that's why, folks, these are late stage regime times and so very dangerous. But as the saying goes, hard times create strong men and women, and we will be counted. We will save the republic from the cliff, and we'll build a Democrats are trying to destroy. And I don't know if it's just Democrats. This is inflammatory here, because it's these deep state puppets. It's the parakeets. It's not just Democrats doing bad things, and it's not just Republicans doing bad things. That's the problem here, is seeing the other person as an other, as a them, as an enemy, as someone to be defeated, right? This is not a win or lose situation. If the Democrats win, the Republicans don't lose. We all live in the same country. If the Republicans win, the Democrats don't lose. We all live in the same country. We have to find a way that, I keep going back to this analogy of democracy, freedom being a bird with two wings. You have the left wing and the right wing. And when those wings fly together, when they flap together, they keep the bird true. They keep the bird centered, right? And the bird can fly accurately. It can fly high. It could do all sorts of crazy shit. But if one of those wings gets too strong, if one of those wings starts flapping too hard, guess what? The bird's going to start faltering. It's going to start spinning in circles. It's going to start falling instead of flying. And that's what we're seeing now. So this is not about Democrats or Republicans. We have to get rid of that. This idea that this two-party system is going to be the death of us. And you have to stop looking at this as sporting events. This is not a Super Bowl. There is not one team that's going to walk away with the trophy and then the other team goes home a loser. We all have to be winners in this game, even if we disagree with each other. And that's the most important thing to keep in mind as we go through all of this, right? This all has to be tempered down. Oh, okay. Take a step back, Rymar, breathe. Okay. So I don't know what's going on, right? Things are getting crazy. The world is for sure getting more interesting. This episode of America, this season of America is out of control. You couldn't write this shit. Literally, if you've watched House of Cards or Veep or any of these political shows, you literally couldn't write this. The audience would not believe this stuff. If you put this stuff into a TV show, nobody believe it. They think it was too crazy. This is too crazy, right? But it's real life. We're all seeing it. We're all living through it. This is going to be 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people will be studying these times in their history books, wondering what the fuck we were thinking, right? And it's up to us to write that narrative, right? To change that narrative, to make sure that the narrative doesn't end up, in a complete calamity. And if you couple this crazy stuff, what's going on with like the financial crisis that we're in, I saw something the other day. It was like our national debt makes up something like 75% of all tax revenue. So essentially, like 75-80% of all tax revenue is going just to pay the debt. The US national debt is larger annually than the entire military budget of the United States. And we spend a lot of money on the military, like a lot of money on the military, which is crazy to think about. And so what's going on with the dollar? What's going on with the finances? What's going on with the whole financial sector? And then what's going on with all this political shit? There's some puppet masters behind the scene here it's going nuts. And the whole world's laughing at us. The whole world's kind of looking at us. I had this, I don't think I had it open. I'm going to find it real quick, though, because this was something I wanted. I'm going to end with a couple, funny things here. Let's see if I can find there was a cartoon that I saw. Man, I'm not going to find it. God bless it. There was a cartoon somebody made joking about the assassination attempt here and kind of making fun of the whole thing. I swore I saved it, but now I'm not finding it in my bookmarks here. So anyway, maybe we won't have that in this episode, but I'll share it in the links if I find it. I thought I had it opened in a tab, but I don't. Damn, I didn't think I went that far down. You can see I got a bunch of stuff I was interested in talking about. Okay, here I'm coming back into this section. I'm coming back to the more recent stuff. Bum, bum, bum. Oh. Stay with me. Stay with me. I'm close. No. There it is.
The building in front of the stage. Being checked. Which building? The only building in front of the stage. That building. Maybe. Maybe not. How maybe not? You think it's necessary? I see a guy moving on the roof. The usual guys. Boss is very suspicious. He might be doing a parkour. He's lie down flat on his stomach. He's probably resting after doing parkour. He's looking towards Trump. Maybe the Trump fan tried to get a better view of him. Okay, he's pulled out a rifle. A rifle. Definitely a rifle. Can you tell if it's a real rifle? How I know if it's real? Maybe it's fake and we are worrying for nothing. It's a real rifle. Very strange. Boss, awaiting your orders. Do you see any clay pigeon shooting devices? I don't think he's practicing shooting clay pigeons. We need to be sure, Frank. Boss, now he's aiming towards Trump. Can you see his expression? What expression? His facial expression. He seems to be mad. I don't know, boss. Or is he looking at him admirably? I can't tell. Maybe he's just using the rifle scope to get a better look. Boss, if we don't act now, he will shoot him. Stay calm, Frank. I don't think. He's shooting, boss. Holy cow. He's still shooting. What do I do? Are you sure you don't see any clay pigeons around? No clay pigeons. All right, in that case, fire a warning shot immediately. We couldn't.
So they're looking at us outside of the U.S. thinking, what the hell's going on here? And imagine being on the outside of the U.S., looking up and seeing the land of the free and the home of the brave and thinking like, man, if that's happening there, what hope do we have here in our nation? We used to be the shining city on the hill that set the standard and kind of like, set the threshold for what other folks aspire to. And, as freedom, there's still millions of people moving into this country. We didn't even talk about the immigration numbers under Biden, that tie into all of this craziness, like letting all these folks come in. And then just recently passing a bill that, would require citizenship to vote. And you had almost all of the Democratic Party essentially say, vote against this thing. Like, it's hard to not question the entire motives of a party, of a political party. I know what I just said earlier, but it's hard not to question these motives when the people in charge of this party continue to vote for things like this, right? They continue to vote against, something as simple as requiring proof of ID or proof of citizenship to vote, which to me seems like standard fodder. And then you see, things like this coming from all over the web. There's another one here. This was super funny.
To address some of the hateful shit. My fellow Americans, I want to take a moment to address some of the hateful shit you've been talking about me. Many of you have said I am suffering from brain worms or that I have applesauce for brains. Well, I won't mince words, so here it is. Fuck you. You're all a bunch of faggots. End of quote. Repeat the line. So enjoy President Cackles or President Booty Juice. I really don't give two fucks anymore. Biden out. My fellow Americans, I want to take a moment to address.
The internet is unfucking defeated. You know, you see stuff like this and it's like, oh man, you know, repeat the line, quoting, because, you know, Biden's got a habit of reading the stuff that is just supposed to be instructions on the teleprompter, the things you're supposed to ignore, like end of sentence or, again, repeat the line, stuff like that. I mean, this is no laughing matter, but it's fun to be able to, it's good to be able to laugh about this. You know, this is serious times. Again, going back to how I started this, we're in weird moments as a nation. And I think it's more and more important as individuals that we learn to kind of chat and communicate and share about this stuff and just find channels outside of the mainstream to connect with each other, to build community locally, to build community online outside of traditional channels, you know, to build private communities where you can discuss this stuff, where we can disagree with folks and not be subject to the, you know, the scorn of the public eye or be influenced by these algorithmic feeds rather than like just creating real discussions. And that's what I'm hoping to start here. If you have any thoughts about any of this, or if you think I blew it, if you think, you know, I'm totally off base here, feel free to let me know in the comments of the post. And I'm really thinking about how to do some kind of roundtable thing. A bunch of you reached out after the last episode where I talked about it would be cool to do this stuff as a live discussion. So I'm thinking about some, you know, rated R roundtable or something like that, where maybe we get together and just talk about some of this. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me in the DMs, either on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you're finding this, YouTube. And yeah, you can send an email even to me, me@rymar.com. And if you go to the website, if you go to, let's see, if you just go to rymar.com, RAYMMAR.com, you can just click the button there to send me an email. It'll open up the email and allow that. It's not showing because I'm full screen here. But if you just click send email, it'll open up an email and you can send me a letter. So send me your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Are you paying attention to this? Are you totally unplugged? Do you give a fuck? You know, what's going through your head as you see some of this stuff, as you see the news break, as you kind of start to question everything happening around you? What is going through your head? I'd be interested in hearing from some of you all. Thanks for listening to me rant and ramble. That's it. That's episode number 3. Things are getting a little weird here. Rated R for Rymar. Check y'all on the next episode. Bye now.